Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Gary Small, director of the UCLA Longevity Center, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar today, Healthy Longevity During the COVID-19 Crisis. I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for joining us, taking time out of your busy day to hear what we have to say. I also would like to thank our Longevity Center Board of Directors and our Longevity Center staff for helping to make this possible. And a special thanks to the IT staff at the Semel Institute for helping us with all the technology details. Now, I want to just outline what we're going to do during this hour. I will start out by going through a PowerPoint presentation, highlighting what I think are some important issues that we should all consider about this topic. Then I will introduce my co-panelist, Dr. Linda Ercoli, and I'll give you more details about her career and background in just a moment. And Dr. Ercoli and I will have a chance to talk a bit about some of these issues, and then we'll have an opportunity to try to answer some of your questions. And at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can see there's a Q&A function, and you can type in your questions, and we'll try to field those questions at the end of the conversation. So again, welcome, and let's just get right into the presentation. So we're facing an extraordinary time right now, and it's particularly difficult for people of all ages, especially older adults. And that's what we're going to focus on, older adults in the pandemic crisis. We are sheltering in place, at least most of us are still doing that. And we're facing major lifestyle challenges. Our everyday work, our daily chores, our social life, all this has been upended. It's normal to experience fear, worry, anxiety, and those worries take many different forms. First and foremost is the worry about exposure to the coronavirus. Concerns about the future. What is the world going to be like after this crisis period? Financial concerns. And not just worries about our risk of exposure to the virus, but especially older adults have multiple medical illnesses. And we know that our health system is really impacted by this pandemic. Will we be able to get the proper health care for our multiple medical illnesses? Will we be able to get our medications? So there's a lot of concerns that come up for older adults. And the worries are heightened because older people have a greater risk for more severe illness if they contract coronavirus. And this creates challenges for maintaining a healthy longevity lifestyle. So many of you have heard me speak before about living better longer and how we can do that. And I'll review with you some of those lifestyle habits that are important. But we're challenged by that because we're sheltering in place. Our sleep is disrupted. Our daily routine is disrupted. Many people, particularly in urban areas, have limited access to outdoors. And there's tremendous isolation and loneliness that people are experiencing. So I've talked about the formula for successful aging, how there are certain things we can do that have a greater impact on how long and how well we live than our genetic predisposition. So physical and mental exercise, managing stress, consuming a healthy diet, staying socially engaged, getting proper sleep. These and many other lifestyle choices make a big difference on how long and how well we live. So how is this pandemic crisis impacting our ability to live this healthy longevity lifestyle? What can we do about it? We know that if we live this lifestyle, it will improve our mood, it will improve our mental capacity, our cognition. And by the way, this is true for people of all ages, particularly older people. It will extend our life expectancy, and an added bonus during this crisis is that it will actually boost our immune system, our ability to fight off infections. And we know that from previous studies, and some of them are summarized in this next slide. A study from several decades ago found that research volunteers who reported higher stress levels, they had a greater risk of getting a cold. Those in another study who reported or experienced increased marital stress, they had slower wound healing. People who don't get as much sleep have a greater likelihood of catching a cold, another virus. Another problem I mentioned, it's hard for many people to get outdoors. We know that sunlight helps us generate vitamin D, and low vitamin D levels are linked to a higher risk of respiratory infection. And we'll talk about how to boost vitamin D through consuming fatty fish or exposure to sunlight. And then one other study, or several other studies, have found that physical inactivity increases our infection risk. So let's go through each of these lifestyle habits and how we can adjust them during the pandemic crisis. We'll start with physical exercise. So for an older person to protect their brain, to live better longer, I always recommend 3 components for a physical exercise program: aerobic conditioning, strength training, and balance training. We need aerobic conditioning because it gets our heart to pump oxygen and nutrients to our brain cells. It gets our body to produce endorphins, which improves our mood. We also produce brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which gets our brain cells to communicate more effectively. But how can you exercise? How can you get that cardio workout if you can't get outside? Well, there are many things we can do. The simplest level, you can walk down your hallway. If you have a 2-story house or a 3-story house, you can go up and down the stairs. That can give you a cardiac exercise. Be careful if you have knee or hip injuries to take it easy, but still that can be a form of exercise. And be sure to use the hand railings because you don't want to trip and fall. Another thing that's been recommended is if you're on the phone and you're talking on your cell phone, you can walk up and down the hallway while you're talking on the phone. Great way to continue getting some kind of a cardio workout. And you can even do different exercises in place. And there are online classes. You can look up chair yoga for seniors or Tai Chi at home. Different kinds of approaches where you can do the exercises at home. What about strength training? That's important for cognition and for life expectancy, to keep up your lean muscle mass. It certainly helps with successful aging, but you may not have dumbbells to lift at home. So it's possible to improvise. You can use a filled water bottle or filled soup cans as dumbbells. You can have delivered to your house, if you don't have them already, resistance bands. And you can go online and find different exercise programs that can help you continue to have strength training during this pandemic crisis. And the third is balance training. That can be very simple, just standing on one leg. But I advise you, if you're doing this for the first time, to maybe have somebody spot you or hold on to a rail or a chair so you don't fall over, because it can be a little difficult at first. But I think balance training is important because that helps protect us from falling. And falls are a risk factor for injury, and sometimes severe injury, in older adults. You can fracture a hip or fracture an extremity, or even hit your head and have a traumatic brain injury as a result of it. What about mental exercise? A lot of studies have shown that keeping your mind stimulated is good for your brain health. And there are a number of ways to do that. But also I want to plug our Longevity Center memory education programs. We have a variety of different programs: memory training, memory fitness, memory care, brain boot camp. We've licensed this across the country and other countries. And I'm really proud of our Longevity Center staff who have very rapidly transitioned these programs to online programs. So now you can email us or check out our website. Just Google UCLA Longevity Center, which, by the way, will be a brain health exercise. Just searching online, we've shown in our studies, is a way to activate your neural circuits. And so you too can enroll in these programs online, because the memory training techniques actually help above and beyond just mental stimulation. You learn ways to compensate for age-related memory decline. And it's a wonderful way to do that. And we and others have shown that this can be very effective in helping you have a stronger memory for right now, very quickly, and for years to come. Other ways of stimulating your mind while you're at home, sheltering in place, you can play games, you can do puzzles, or you can do them online. I've talked about a lot of computer games that can improve your multitasking skills or improve your short-term memory. You can take a virtual field trip. Christina Domer in our Longevity Center found a number of different sites. Search the National Park Service, go for earthcam.com, and you can explore just any place on Earth practically, or in the universe, or in our solar system, where you can go into outer space and take some wonderful trips, or even subterranean field trips that can be a lot of fun. You can watch comedies and TV shows. You know, I know that Gigi and I have been really trolling our internet for looking for comedies to kind of get a little bit of escape from all the bad news, and it's terrific fun. I can remind you, though, of a study that found that a 10-minute conversation is better for your cognitive health than watching 10 minutes of a Seinfeld rerun. But I still like to watch those reruns, and I think they're a lot of fun. So keep those conversations going and reach out to your friends online and visit them. I know that since this thing started, I've reached out to some friends I hadn't been in contact with for quite a while, because I wanted to make sure they were healthy and safe. And it's been wonderful to rekindle those relationships during this challenging time. What about managing stress? Well, there's a number of strategies to keep in mind. Now you want to stay informed. So watching the news and watching reliable news sources is very important. But you don't want to watch too much news, because binge watching the news can be a form of stress. When you watch the news and you know what the true risk is to you, it actually lowers your anxiety level. But again, too much news can be too much. It's very important to create a daily routine and stick to it and get dressed. You notice I have a tie on and a jacket, and I don't usually do this for my meetings. I'll just have an open shirt, but I'll still get dressed and I'll create a routine each day. And I think that's important. You get up at the same time you would normally. If you're telecommuting, go through your day, take breaks for lunch, or just relaxing, some leisure activity, or exercise, but have some kind of a rhythm to your day, so it just doesn't seem like the same day all the time, which can be quite stressful. Try to eliminate clutter and stay organized. I think a lot of people are complaining that, you know, they may be in one room and they get distracted by this, that, and the other. So try to find a workplace and to separate yourself so you can have a bit more organization. Meditation is a great way to lower anxiety levels, and you can get these meditation apps that will help you to calm yourself down. You can learn it very quickly, and you have a guide you through these meditation apps, and you can download them for free from the UCLA MARC website, which stands for Mindful Awareness Research Center, or you can buy some of them online. There are sites like Calm or Insight Timer, which have terrific apps. And also, if you find the stress is really getting to you, don't be afraid to reach out for professional help. Our geriatric psychiatry group has shifted very rapidly to an online virtual program where we're seeing people online. Those who can't manage Zoom, we use a telephone. And I put there telepsychiatry versus online therapy. I just wanted to make a comment about a lot of the online programs that are available, and some people will use them. There are different mental health apps. Just be aware that not all of them have been properly vetted. Some are quite good, and I'll share with you in a moment some of the online therapies that are showing to be helpful. That is the online computer therapy. What about nutrition? We want to consume anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats from fish and nuts. These are certainly good for our brain health and also good for our heart health. You can get fish and freeze it, and you can still grill it, and it will be good for your brain health. I would stay away from fried fish. That doesn't really help. In terms of nuts, when you buy the nuts, they have a longer shelf life if you're sheltering in place, if you put them in the freezer. So keep that in mind. You want to get enough vitamin D. And if you can't get out in the sun enough, you can get it from milk products or from fish. Now, vitamin D supplements, there's some controversy there. They could help you, and they're especially important if you have low vitamin D levels. So that's something your doctor would need to check from a blood test. In the meantime, sunlight, fish, and milk products can help you keep your vitamin D at a proper level. If you have low vitamin D, it can affect your bone health and your cognitive health. You want to eat antioxidant fruits and vegetables, which will help you prevent wear and tear on your brain cells from oxidative stress as you age. And another tip there is that it may be more difficult in the pandemic time to get this stuff fresh, but hopefully you can get it delivered to your home. And if you have canned or frozen versions, they still have nutrients. But be careful with the ingredients, because some of these canned soups can have a lot of salt. So you might want the low salt version, especially if you have high blood pressure. And another issue that a lot of people are complaining about, because of the stress, they're binge eating and they're stress eating. So, that's not good for your brain health. It's not good for your physical health. The processed food, the refined sugars, all those lovely snacks, if we eat too many of them, that increases our risk for type 2 diabetes, for obesity, and for Alzheimer's disease. So around the house, try not to leave them around. Try to have healthy snacks because, out of sight, out of mind. If you don't see those unhealthy snacks, you're less likely to reach for them. And we can use our technology to stay socially engaged. Loners don't do well. Unfortunately, some people are aging in place or sheltering in place, as well as aging in place alone. And that leads to isolation and loneliness, which is not good. So try to reach out to your friends. Use video conferencing to have meals and snacks with them, to have conversations. Gigi and I, we have a regular hearts card game with another couple where we use Zoom to meet up with them and exchange niceties. And then we found a program, an app where we can use it on our cell phones, where we can each play our hand of hearts. And it's great fun. It makes us feel like we're back to the way the world used to be. Those of you who are fortunate enough to have family or friends in the household, you should nurture those relationships. Listen to each other. Be kind. But talk about your feelings. If you're upset, bring it up, but try not to get defensive and attack. That will go a long way. And try to find time each day to spend alone so you can recharge your emotional battery, and even a designated space to do your work or to do whatever you want to do. This would not be a good idea to get work done this kind of situation, but where you don't have others distracting you, that's a much more efficient way to do it. And our sleep schedules are disrupted. I've talked to a number of people who say this is a problem. And in fact, I wanted to mention how this pandemic virus is really creating a one world of stress where we have a common enemy. I spoke to a journalist on the other side of the world the other day who was doing a story just on this very topic in Abu Dhabi. And she was having similar kinds of issues. And one thing she complained about was that she was constantly texting or using WhatsApp to talk to her friends, and it was disrupting her sleep at night. So what I would recommend is stick to a schedule. Try not to watch television or use your apps at night to communicate, because it'll stimulate you and keep you up. Create a relaxing bedtime ritual. Try not to nap during the day. It'll be easier to sleep at night. Make sure you get enough exercise during the day. That'll help you to sleep. Avoid liquids, caffeine. Again, the computer screen time at bedtime. And you can use these guided meditation apps to help you settle down at night. And I mentioned some of the mental health apps that can be used. And for example, cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of therapy that has been studied extensively, and it's very effective with anxiety, with depression, and also with insomnia. So there are even cognitive behavioral therapies for insomnia that are applications and can be done without a live therapist, and they can be quite effective. So to summarize, just a few tips and pointers how to live better longer during this pandemic crisis. It's possible. You can do it by capitalizing on the technology we have, trying to reach out to others, trying to make sure that you follow the formula to successful aging. But a theme here is being resilient, is trying to adapt so things work. And I can think of just examples of that. So for example, Gigi and I would like to take a walk every day outside if we can, but sometimes it gets disrupted. So we'll change it, and maybe we'll use the stationary bicycle and get our exercise in that way if something happens to disrupt our usual activity. So at this point, what I'd like to do, and also let me mention ways to get in touch with us. The Longevity Center website is there. If you can't write it down, you can just search online, UCLA Longevity Center. You can write to us at that email at mednet.ucla.edu. And also, I am giving you tips in areas that I feel comfortable with in terms of brain health and longevity, but I'm sure many of you have questions about the pandemic and your detailed health risks. And I urge you to go to the UCLA Health System website at uclahealth.org, and they have a button you can push to get updates on what's going on. They give you great information that's been well vetted, and it should calm you down because it'll give you proper information. So at this point, what I'd like to do is remind you, I see there are a few questions that have come in. If you have more questions, just go to the bottom of the Zoom page. You can see the Q&A function. You can type in questions. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce my co-panelists, Dr. Linda Ercoli, who has been a longtime friend and collaborator for many years, for decades actually. Linda is a professor of psychiatry at UCLA, where she also is director of geriatric psychology. She is a renowned educator, a renowned clinician, and clinical investigator. She's also helped us develop memory training classes for the UCLA Longevity Center, and they're available throughout the US. Right now, we're in approximately 160 sites. Linda's academic interests have ranged from early detection and treatment of age-related memory loss, to caregiver stress, taking away the car keys from older adults, you name it. She has some really fascinating areas that she's gotten into. So with that, what I'm going to do is to stop sharing my screen. So you can now see my head bigger, and you can see Linda's head bigger. And I see that Linda has taken her mute button off. That's good. We're very tech savvy here, which is good for our cognitive health. And so Linda, welcome. I really appreciate your taking the time to share your expertise and insights with us, and just open it up for the conversation. Any thoughts you have about some of the points I made, or any questions you might have, please welcome and talk away.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be here. Yeah, you know, as you were talking, you're a clinician. We're both in mental health. But what I was thinking for myself and for other people is, what are some of the challenges that you have experienced in adjusting to this COVID sheltering in place situation that we're all in?
So you're asking me personally what I do?
Yeah, I am.
Good. It's a great question, because it makes the issues very concrete. I mean, I shared a little bit of some of what Gigi and I have been doing, but I can be a little more candid and take a few minutes to tell you how I've adjusted to it. And I can just start out. It has been very challenging. I can tell you that I feel like I'm working time and a half. Now you think that, why would that be? Because I'm not commuting to work. I'm pretty much telecommuting, staying at home, not going out that much except for walks and a few other errands. But I think it's very difficult to transition to this virtual world. It's, even though you know, it's wonderful that we have it, but it's awkward. You know, texting, emailing, doing things two-dimensionally, it takes longer. It's not quite as efficient. Adapting to the technology is challenging. And I think many of us have had this experience. I certainly experienced it. It's like that movie Groundhog Day. You get up and you think, is this Saturday? Is it Sunday? What day it is? Because you're going through the same thing each day. But you know, I found I like to practice what I preach. And I found a lot of the advice I'm giving today are strategies that I've embraced. So, you know, we get up in the morning, we do our usual ritual. We used to like to read the paper. You know, I'm old school, but it got to be a hassle to try to pick it up and you know, have to decontaminate it. So we've transitioned to the online paper. I'll get my crossword puzzles, I'll print them out, so I'll still do them by hand. But we have our usual rituals of reading the paper, you know, scanning the news in the morning. Then I go to work. I'll take rests and breaks. I'll get dressed as I recommended. We'll have an exercise break. We'd like to exercise or take that walk in the morning. I'll do some strength training as well as some aerobic training each day. One of the nice things is I get to have lunch with my wife. There's an old saying, for better or for worse, but not for lunch. Well, she's got me for lunch. And you know, it continues through the day. We reach out to friends in the evening. We like to cut off the work, you know, by late afternoon, and then we can kind of relax a bit. And then in the evenings, we either socialize with ourselves or others, or we'll, you know, we'll watch something online, watch a TV show or something else, or read, as we usually do. Now I'm going to throw it right back at you, Linda. What are you doing? I know you have a lot of animals. You actually helped train our Labradoodle years ago. So
Yeah.
how are you making it work, and how are you dealing with all those pets?
I guess the pets are my distraction, and I should be training one of my dogs right now that I just acquired, or who acquired me. But I'm avoiding that. But I find my pets a total source of comfort and entertainment right now. They're just entertaining to me. And I made sure that everybody's locked away right now. Otherwise, there would be a cat walking across the table. I could say in my life, I don't think I've ever been as challenged to put my money where my mouth is regarding what I've learned about lifestyle and self-care as now during this pandemic. And I found it a challenge to balance life, at work and at home, because I commute a lot and I'm not doing that now. So that's one thing. Getting enough exercise, and I exercise a lot. I run, I do weight training, but because I'm not getting up at work and talking to my colleagues or walking across the street to another office, I'm not out of my chair like I normally am, and I'm not feeling as physically tired. So I'm making it a point to do more physical things during the day. That might be just get up for a while or work standing up for a while. I'm taking it very seriously to get vitamin D. And number one is through sunlight. So to make sure my sleeping patterns stay about where they are. And reaching out socially is really important. I very much miss my colleagues at work. I miss the people, that I miss my patients, even though we're all going towards Zoom and doing a good job of it. So I try to reach out more, but interestingly, like you say, not so much that you're texting or doing things, in the night when you should be winding down and, and getting ready for your me time or whenever you relax. So yeah, I'm really trying very hard to stick to all those things that we tell our patients, make sure that I'm true to that for myself as well.
So, while you're talking, I thought of a couple of things, and that is how, when this first started, I think it was more anxiety provoking because do we have enough toilet paper? Do we have enough food or canned goods? And I think until we got our supplies down, until we got into the routine of how to function in this new normal, I think it was quite difficult. So I think there's certainly a learning curve. And I've seen that among my friends and colleagues and with my patients, that people are getting a little more comfortable with the situation. I also want, when you mentioned the vitamin D, I'm starting to see we actually have quite a few questions coming in. One person asked about the controversy over the vitamin D supplements. I think this is a general issue, is that if you look at the, and actually I talked about this last week at the webinar we had. And by the way, if you missed our webinar last week on Alzheimer's disease, it is now posted on the Longevity Center homepage. And we'll be posting this as well. And let me also add that several of the questions are, can we get copies of this PowerPoint? And yes, well, I think we should probably do that. I'll ask the staff to help me. I'll make a PDF file of the PowerPoint so we can post it online on the website. So, I think that the controversy is that there are a lot of studies looking at supplements, and we find an association that, if you take the supplement, then you have better brain health or you have better bone health. But to really prove there's a cause and effect relationship, you have to do these double-blind studies. And so the other thing about vitamin D, what they have shown, if you are vitamin D deficient, you will do better if you take the vitamin D. What's not so clear is if your vitamin D level is normal and you take the supplement, will it really do that much for you? I think that's where the controversy is. I don't think it's going to harm you that much. Vitamin D is one of the fat-soluble vitamins. A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble, which means if you do mega doses, it could be stored in your fat, and there's a potential for problems. I think sometimes less is more for some people. They overdo it. Anyway, so I kind of I got off on a tangent. I don't know if you have more questions. Actually, I have a question for you, and I'm gonna, because I know you've done a lot on caregiver stress.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that's come up in some of my conversations with journalists and friends and family, is people ask, well, how can, younger people help their elders? In fact, I just had an interview with the UCLA Daily Bruin journalists, and that question came up. And I think there are several ways. I'm going to tell you what my answer is, but I'm curious about your thoughts. One thing is that, a lot of older people are limited in terms of their physical function. So, they may be doing fine at home, going up and down the stairs even, but they may not be able to lift that water bottle and put it on the dispenser. So I think, the younger generation reaching out to mom and dad and to grandma and grandpa saying, hey, can I go, or they may be concerned about going to the market and being, having greater exposure to the virus. Hey, can I go to the market? Can I pick up some stuff for you? Can I come in and wear a mask and maybe lift up your water bottles and put them on the dispenser? Anyway, any thoughts that you might have?
Yeah, first of all, I think that's great advice. It's good because also the world of an older adult often shrinks if somebody becomes physically able to get out or less cognitively able. And now with COVID-19, it's really shrunk because now we have actual restrictions about doing those things that we really depend, to keep fit, to stay mentally healthy. And I've heard this many times from patients is if my grandson or, if my mother's grandchild would call her, it would mean the world to her. And it only has to be 10 or 15 minutes on a FaceTime call, for example, or a call on the phone if you can't navigate FaceTime. But I think that gives such an emotional lift to someone. It helps them really feel fulfilled and less lonely. So that's a really good piece of advice. Another piece is about caregiving. You brought up caregiving specifically, is now people are sheltering in place with someone that they care for. And it could be a dependent adult, like someone with Alzheimer's disease, or it could be with a child, because I hear a lot of people struggling with, how do you work with a 4-year-old? And specifically for older adults, you definitely need your space. You need to find time to have space. Perhaps when that older adult takes a nap, that's a time for you to read a book or to watch TV or do something, for yourself. It is a time to do things together because you're in it together. There aren't a lot of distractions with some of these games that you're talking about, or reminiscing, looking at scrapbooks, going for a walk together. All of those things are really important to do, because if you have someone that you're caring for that has a severe memory problem, boredom facilitates people becoming agitated and restless. And so I think people need to find some way to spend time, quality time together, but simple things, but then to take advantage of the time when you're by yourself to recharge your batteries, do some meditation, or just read a book, whatever makes you feel good.
Those are great comments, Linda. I really appreciate that. Now, we've got quite a few questions, so I want to try to get to as many as we can. Here's someone that's kind of interesting, wanted to suggest something helpful. She stands on one leg while brushing her teeth. So that's kind of an interesting take on it. I've worked with a physical trainer and they have me stand on one leg, which I can do, but then if you close your eyes while you're doing it, it's quite difficult. And in fact, many people have recommended, parenthetically, if you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand, and that can kind of help stimulate your brain. I don't advise men to do that with safety razors because they could cut themselves. So that was kind of an interesting suggestion. Here was something about the UCLA Physical Therapy Department or rehab. Maybe they could make a video to put their SAIL senior exercise program online. I think that's a good idea. And we've had a study, the Alzheimer's prevention study, where we use that program, which is quite helpful. According to announcements of reopening society, people over 65 years of age will be the last to be able to return to work, whether or not there are pre-existing conditions. let's see if there's, well, I don't see that as a question. Do you have any thoughts about that? I just see that somebody commented on that. How do I navigate living with family during the stay-at-home directives? We've got 8 people in a multi-generational household, and it can get to be very stressful. As I've said, even people you love can drive you crazy sometimes. Maybe you want to start with that one, Linda, and I'll comment too.
8 people in a multi-generational household. Well, let me start with the older adult.
Let's just say it depends on how big that house is.
Yeah, depends, right, right. How many stories do you have? But some people don't have that luxury. So let's start with the older adult. Number one is do some intergenerational shift work. So maybe there's a time when grandparents want to play with grandchildren. You know, kind of rotate and socializing with each other, I think would be good. And then the folks that are sort of, you know, need their space can take some time out. And there's nothing even against one saying, you know, between 10 and 1 or between 10 and 11, it's grandpa and the grandkids playing games, doing something together. Utilize every space in the house that you can. If you have a garden or a yard, I mean, kids can be outside playing. You can be outside if you have plants. If not, you can start a garden. And again, people need their own projects. That's part of it. And then do some shift work, I think, in spending time with each other, being respectful, perhaps having some family meetings and setting some ground rules down would be very helpful. And then if you have little ones, I think you also need that shift work where between these hours, you know, dad takes over. Between these hours, mom takes over. And in fact, this is how some of my young colleagues with children are juggling work and being home at the same time, is to split up the parenting time between them. So
great. That's great advice. I think that really goes a long way. I know that Gigi and I, in many of our books, provided exercises to help people learn to listen better, to be more empathic. This can go a long way, certainly to help relationships. You know, I've found I'm spending more time with my adult children outside the house because, you know, they'll FaceTime me and they'll call, and it's lovely to connect that way.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. There's also nothing wrong with telling somebody, you know, I'm not having a great day today, or I feel cranky today. So nobody has to hide that. But I think it gives someone information to, you know what, I'm gonna lay off that person today, or I'm gonna leave that person have his space today. Because one of the concerns has been a rise in domestic violence. Now that people are cohabitating like all the time really closely. And so that's why I think communicating how you feel and not expecting people to read your mind or for them to think that, you know, you're always going to feel okay every day during this really stressful time.
Those are some great points. You know, you just, the natural tendency is if somebody attacks you, you attack back. Not only escalates the situation, you can stop that cycle. If rather than, you know, when your friend or your spouse slams the door and you want to say, oh, you're insensitive for slamming the door, instead of attacking, you talk about how it makes you feel. Talk about your feelings. You know, when you slam the door, I feel isolated, or I feel not heard, and so forth. So here's a question. Is there a cost for the cognitive memory programs? We're on a very limited budget. There is a cost. I think it's a relatively modest cost. When you think about how much it costs to go see a movie, it's comparable to that, and I think you get a bigger bang for your buck. And some of the programs do have scholarships available. So I think reach out if you're concerned about the cost. The staff will speak with you about it. Here's a question I'm over 65 have no pre-existing conditions. Do you agree that people over 65 with no pre-existing health conditions should be treated differently than younger people? I'm somewhat put off by this notion. And, you know, I think it is a little bit, it's reeks of ageism, so to speak. So, you know, I think that what we're looking at here is that guidance is based on the statistics. And they find on average that if you're 65 or older, you have a greater risk for more serious illness. But we also know that being in the older age group, it's a very heterogeneous age group. I mean, there are some 90-year-olds who are in better shape than some 30-year-olds, and lifestyle has a lot to do with it. So I think it's, you know, it's really guidance. I don't think people are saying it just to try to be ageist. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I know people who have felt the same way. They're like, hey, I'm X age and I'm physically fit and good shape and I feel like I'm being picked on. But I'm one to go with the statistics, particularly because one doesn't always know how this virus is going to affect the individual. And, you know, so I've approached this from a very cautious perspective for me. And because I live with someone who's in the older adult range, but I also really take my lead from the UCLA website because it's so incredibly up to date about, you know, what's going on in the state, what's going on in our city. We have really reputable websites to go to that you can do some deep reading about risk and taking precautions and make your own decisions.
Good. So, you know, there's another question here about insomnia and sleep and light. Actually, a couple of questions about insomnia. What lifestyle changes would be most effective? I mean, a lot of people are suffering from insomnia. There's no question about it. I tried to outline some what we call sleep hygiene techniques, and then our books, we talk about that in more detail. You can get that information online, how to treat insomnia without taking medications. But, you know, I think physical exercise is very important for insomnia. I think the meditation can really help. Years ago, I had a patient who brought up his own experience, which I thought was interesting. And that is, he would always read a book when he went to bed, and he'd get sleepy, and he'd put the book down, and then he'd reach up, turn off the light, and by the time he settled down, he was awake again. And what he realized, it was the movement, the moving around that kept him awake. And so he would just try remaining very still, and he would fall asleep. And in a way, that's what a lot of these meditation techniques do to help with insomnia. So I think, you know, certainly sunlight during the day is important. It helps. It keeps our circadian rhythm at the right level, but also physical exercise and many of the other tips I mentioned before. Let's see. So do you have any specific memory exercises we can perform at home? I usually do this, but Linda, you've helped us with the memory education programs. Maybe you want to give just a quick memory tip for people.
Well, you can do them all at home. If you want to utilize them in a real world situation, naturally it would be when you go to the store or something like that. But it's funny that this question came in because it's really important now to challenge yourself, whether you're going to brush your teeth, you know, standing on one leg, or you're going to give yourself some memory exercises. You know, challenge yourself to remember a list. Learn a new language. Now's a great time to use online to learn a new language or learn a musical instrument. So, or use your visual and verbal association techniques to give yourself things to remember, almost like little drills. There is no single way to do it, but I completely agree that challenging oneself right now is good, because you need to kind of break out of the the mundane monotony of being in the same environment every day.
Those are great tips. I often, tell people to, learning these techniques is like learning a language. You want to kind of build up your repertoire and just, try to learn a new person's name, just one name in a day, and use visualization to look at something unique about them and try to create images in your mind to make it meaningful. And you can do that quickly. Yeah, somebody asked, what is considered a pre-existing condition? That would, I think it goes back to the other question about people 65 or older being at greater risk for severe viral symptoms. And, pre-existing conditions might be asthma, could be bronchitis, hypertension. But I think I would refer you to the UCLA Health website for a complete list. Here's a question. This is interesting. My mom has Alzheimer's and seems to come alive when I sing familiar songs to her. Are there any websites I can go to where she can sing along? Well, I'm going to ask you that question, Linda, and if you can't get it, I'm going to ask Christina Domer at the Longevity Center. She's very good at searching online and finding these helpful websites.
There are sing-along websites. I found one a couple of weeks ago, and they sing very plain songs like, Oh, Susanna and Amazing Grace and things like that. But so, you can do that with your loved one. You can find the websites for it, or you could, in fact, I downloaded a bunch of links, and Christina is fantastic at this, of different types of songs. So depending on what your loved one likes, because that's really what it is. It's the old songs from their younger days that they're going to remember in whatever genre of music that they like. So it might be a gospel song. It could be a Sinatra standard. As all the rockers age, it could be a Beatles song or a Rolling Stone song. But the idea is to just play music from their youth that they really liked, and they'll sing along right along with a CD. So lots out there.
My mother-in-law has advanced Alzheimer's and she loves it. She's originally from Hungary, and they just have this accordion player come into the home, and everybody, particularly she, lit up when she heard that. So a few other questions. I know we're getting to the end of the hour. I try to get a few of them in. One person writes, part of good health is regular doctor visits for yearly exams, checkups, et cetera. A source of stress for me is when and how to resume them. So, I would recommend reaching out to your doctor and having a phone call or a video call and to talk specifically about your concerns. And, no one can predict when we're going to get back to a normal world. I don't think our world will quite be the same for quite a while. But because we're actually learning how these technologies can help us. And I think we'll be using these technologies more as time goes forward. But I think reaching out to the doctor, your personal doctor, expressing those concerns would be helpful. Here's another question. I think we kind of got into that about what do you do with relatives who are in facilities. How do you share your feelings with someone who has very little emotional attunement, hardly any empathy? I feel very alone when I'm with this person at home. Well, that's quite challenging. I think there are some people who don't have that ability to connect with others. And I think that's quite difficult. I don't think there's a simple answer to it. I think you can try to find common ground. You can try to reach out to others outside the home who you feel more connected to. I think, in general, women tend to be more empathic than men. I know my male friends will not like that, but it's true. Women are more socially connected. And I think they're better at this and having friendships and connecting with their friends. But, another thing could be, the way you reach out to that person. I think of when I took my child psychiatry elective during my psychiatry residency, we were taught to do play therapy. So the reason for that, you kind of get to the child at their level. So even someone who doesn't appear to be that empathic, at a certain level, there might be a common ground. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I really feel for the person who sent in that question. Not everybody can fill our needs, all of our needs. And reaching out to somebody who you're on the same wavelength with about those kinds of feelings is a good idea. And also finding something to do with that other person that you live with that you do enjoy doing together. Maybe you like to play cards together. You know, maybe that person doesn't talk about their feelings, but they can be a companion. You have to find where you resonate with that person and try to get needs met through other people. There's also, you know, sometimes psychotherapy is, if there's something deeper that someone needs to talk about, to pursue that. But that's a tough one. The other is, I think, related to this, is try to find some fulfillment during this time. And we're very much into ourselves right now. You know, I'm scared, I'm lonely, my income is being slashed. You know, there's a lot of things that are making us worry and feel scared. But I found it very helpful to do reaching out to other people. And it could be anything. Like I bought masks, a few homemade masks for some friends and sent it to them. It could be you being an ear for somebody. There are volunteer opportunities. Maybe some of it is texting or doing something online, not in person, but to kind of put yourself out of yourself for some amount of time, whether it's, you know, once a week or, you know, or every few days, is actually very therapeutic and fulfilling. So you tend to go in, but try to go out right now too of yourself.
Let me, you know, we're getting very close to the end of the hour. So I'm going to just try to quickly answer a few other questions. I don't think I'll be able to get to them all. One question, what about these visualization techniques? You know, you can actually go online, go on the UCLA Longevity Center website. A UCLA TEDx talk I did on the formula for successful aging goes over that. It's a very quick thing. You can see it on YouTube. Linda, can you, sharing the music link, can you share that really quickly, that link?
For the sing-along?
Yeah, just what are the search terms?
I would put sing-along Alzheimer's disease.
Good. Let's see. If there's anything else I can quickly answer. The rest of these, they're going to be a little bit hard to answer because they're quite extensive and it's already the end of the hour. Linda, I want to thank you again for spending time with us today and sharing your wisdom with us. A lot of insights, and I always enjoy having a conversation with you. I'm glad we were able to have a conversation. We had hundreds of people who signed up and followed the webinar today. I want to thank all of you out there for these terrific questions, and hopefully we got to as many of them as possible. Somebody asked again about getting a copy of the Zoom meeting. It's been recorded and we will post it on our UCLA Longevity Center website. So that's all for now. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank you, Gary. And thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.